Hey guys, what is up? It is Avery, and welcome to Teendom Talk Show, the talk show for the kids, the teens, and everyone in between. Today, we have a very exciting episode for you all, and I'm really happy for it. So, if you cannot tell by my shirt, it says big goals, big hair, big dreams. Today is the very first episode of the Black History Month special, 1 out of 4, and we will be talking about all things black hair. And as you know, I'm black, I have hair, and it's very different from a lot of other textures in the world, which means it can be hard to manage sometimes. And there's a lot of science that goes into it. So today I will be talking to the amazing Dr. Crystal Porter. I'm going to share my screen right now so you all will be able to see a picture of her. And we will be talking about her movement, hashtag Our Black Hair Matters. We will be talking about her company, Main Insights, and a lot more. She also will be giving us some advice on ways to manage our hair, some special tips and tricks, and all things black hair. So I'm really excited to have her on the show. But before we get into our guest, make sure to subscribe to Teendom Talk Show on our YouTube, Teendom Talk Show. Make sure to hit that like button and turn on post notifications. Make sure to follow our Facebook, Inspired Melanin LLC, and make sure that you follow both of those so you'll never miss a single Teendom Talk Show episode. And also make sure to follow my personal Instagram, AveryK_official, so you will be able to get all things Teendom, and we'll also get some special alerts and maybe some special hints for the next episode and have a chance to be on during some weeks. So make sure to do all of that. And now I will be bringing in our guest, Dr. Crystal Porter. So let me put her in right now. Oh my gosh, I'm really excited. Okay, it says that she's joining in. Hi.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing really good. I'm really excited to have you on the show with me today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so proud of you. So it's an honor to be here on your platform.
Thank you so much. As you know, today our episode is all on black hair, and you, being a hair scientist and doing a whole lot more, are the perfect person to talk to. So before we get started into all of the little tips and tricks and everything else, the one thing I want to know is, how did you get started in hair? Like, how did your career start? How did everything start for you?
Wow. So I wish I could say that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I absolutely didn't. But what I knew is that I loved math. I loved science. I went through while in undergraduate school, I originally thought that I wanted to be an accountant, actually.
Oh, wow.
And found out that math the math that I love is not like doing spreadsheets of just data of all these numbers. I didn't like that part of accounting. So after finding out that I could get involved with science, I thought I wanted to go pre-med, and determined after an internship that I really enjoyed doing research. And so right before I was to get my degree in biochemistry, because that's what I finally settled on, I learned that I wanted to actually go to grad school to get more of an understanding about research, but I didn't want to be a chemist or biochemist. I didn't want to be in a laboratory. So I went to graduate school and focused my studies on the mechanics of materials. Ooh. And because hair is a biomaterial, it matched up. And so a company who was looking for a hair scientist, actually a company called Unilever, they saw my credentials and they were like, hey, we'd like to interview you. And they told me all about their company. And I had no idea that my credentials, actually studying polymers and different materials, would give me the background that they needed to study hair. So that's how I ended up doing it. But I didn't plan for it. They found me. I was very fortunate.
That's really interesting. One thing that I realize when I talk to people is they don't exactly know initially where they want to start off when they're finding a career, but ends up finding the perfect career for them. And one thing that you had mentioned is that hair is a biochemical. Is that right?
A biomaterial.
Biomaterial.
A biomaterial, yes.
Oh, okay.
So my studies were actually on like polymer science. So polymers are like plastics. And if you look at a plastic on a molecular level, it really is a big molecule. And so hair is also a big molecule, but it's a biomaterial. So if you study polymers, which are usually associated with plastics, that is what it most mimics, a big molecule called a macromolecule.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That is something that I did not know. When I hear about hair and try and look at the science of hair, I cannot figure it out whatsoever. And one thing that I really want to know is when thinking about hair, specifically black hair, what science goes into it, which is something that lots of people don't even think about. Like, how does science go with that?
Right. So let me actually explain what a hair scientist is really.
Okay.
It's a professional who does research by collecting data. And then you gain understanding or insights about hair. And then hopefully, if you're a good researcher, you actually get it peer reviewed, which means that you run it across other individuals who are in your field, and they kind of, I don't want to say grill you, but they make sure that you've done your due diligence with all the types of variables and things that you need to think about. So after you prove that you've done your due diligence, then you share the information. And so everyone can benefit. So a good scientist is someone who not only does the research, but shares it and runs it across their peers so that they can, kind of see what's going on and challenge you, but in a good way to make sure that everything that you're saying is solid. And so as far as the disciplines or the scientific background that you need, usually you have backgrounds in chemistry and biology, physics is used a lot. All of those disciplines are math-based. So mathematics, what else? Computer science, because now you have to understand statistics. And so having like the ability to run programs, to manipulate all the data, all of that is, really respectable and needed for hair science. So it's very broad.
That is something that one, I just said this, but I never even considered how much math and science like went into just hair overall. And one thing that I know specifically about your career, because you have done so much. You used to work at L'Oreal USA. So
Yeah.
what was your role there? And how did you transition out of that to creating your company, Main Insights?
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I got my start at a company called Unilever. And while at Unilever, L'Oreal established what was called the L'Oreal Institute for Ethnic Hair and Skin Research.
Ooh.
And so when you're working at another company and then you see the insight and the ability to recognize that there needed to be research that was specific for Black people, I jumped at the chance to really understand that more. And so I interviewed, I was one of the first scientists. It was me and another young lady at the time. And it was just so much fun because we got to build it from the ground up, because a lot of research has not been done on Black, or at that time had not been done on Black hair. And so it really was an honor, because you deal with your hair every day as a Black woman, right?
Yeah.
And then if you have children, you deal with their hair. And just to be in a position where I could be a part of research to really understand hair is, it was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so great. I'm telling you now, as a Black girl, I have the hardest time with my hair, to the point where my mom has been doing my hair since I've been born. And it's very difficult, and I'm not even the one doing it. So imagine what it's like for my mom. And one thing that I want to know from you is, when doing the research, what are a couple of things that you've actually learned about Black hair that you didn't know before?
Oh my gosh. So I was very fortunate. So I will answer the other question that you had about, how I transitioned into my own company, but I will let you know what I learned at L'Oreal, because we were very fortunate in the laboratory that we were in to be able to publish our findings. So being a part of what was called the advanced research team, it really was our goal to understand the basics of hair science and understand what goes on with the hair and how quality changes as a function of different ingredients and products, right?
Yeah.
And so when we got started, it was important for us to compare what we considered the three basic categories of hair. So you have hair of African descent, Negroid hair, and then you have Caucasian hair, which was the Caucasoid hair, and then you had Asian hair, Mongoloid hair. And so when you look at those three categories, you see the biggest differences. And so while we're in a very diverse society, right now it's hard to, put them in those three categories because the intermingling of the races have kind of skewed those lines, but it at least allows us to get a fundamental understanding about unique differences. So to answer your question, Black hair is the most variable of all three types. And what I mean by that is if you look at the hair on the head, there is more variability. So not only is the thickness of the hair like different in different spots, and I'm sure as your hair like naturally sheds, you can see the fibers, and some fibers are thinner than others. So we have more variability being Black. So, and of course the hair, obviously looking at it, is more curly compared to other hair types. But what was really interesting is when you look at the cross section of hair, you can also realize that the cuticle layer, so there are three main parts of the hair. You have the outer layer, which is the cuticle, and that's the protective layer. Okay. And so it kind of looks like shingles on the roof. You know how you have the stacking of the cuticle, of the shingles. That's how our cuticle is on the hair. And so then on the inside, what makes the hair strong is actually the cortex of the hair. And then if you have a really thick fiber, then you also have what's called a medulla on the inside. Oh. So I give all of those, I break down all of those because there are differences with the cuticle, which is the protective layer. And what we have found is with Asian hair, there are more of those cuticle layers. Okay. And so the hair is thicker, so the diameter is thicker, but it also has more of those shingles on the roof to protect it. And also there is spacing between the cuticle, and so it's more tightly put together on Asian hair. Now the other extreme is hair of African descent, and so you don't have as many cuticle layers, so you don't have as much protection, and also the spacing is actually more spread out. So there are some differences there. But then if we talk about the strength of the hair and the cortex, there are different components of that strength bearing component. And so there are different types of cells, and I don't want to go all in depth, but there are differences in the distribution of the types of cells within the inside. And so that kind of, gives you kind of a big picture, but it's not simple, but it is what it is. And we believe that a lot of that has an impact on why Black hair is more fragile compared to Caucasian hair and hair of Asian descent.
Oh my, that's a lot to take in. And I feel like I've just learned so much information about my hair, because that's a lot of things that I didn't know. I didn't know about the different layers and specifically the different names, because I had no idea that it was split into 3 different sections. I just thought, oh, some hair is straighter. And then I knew about like the different types of hair, like 4C, 4B, all of that. But you just taught me a lot of information that I had never even considered. So thank you for that. I'm pretty sure the audience was able to learn a little bit too. And I want to go back to the question where you were talking about L'Oreal and then how you transitioned out of that to starting Mane Insights, where I actually have a picture of the website right here. So if you guys want to go and check it out, go to www.maneinsights.com. So one thing that I want to know is, how did you start this?
Yeah. So it wasn't like anything I really planned on doing. I had a lot of insights by working at L'Oreal, from working at L'Oreal. And so one of the things that I had to make a very difficult decision to do, and that is to resign from a very lucrative, I shouldn't say lucrative, but I mean, I was very stable at my day job, right? And so it was very difficult for me to balance, if there is such a thing, work and home life.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I really enjoyed what I did, I was not able to sustain it and be able to take care of my household the way that I wanted to, especially being a mom of younger kids. And so my youngest daughter would call and say, hey, when are you coming home? And it would break my heart. So she needed her mother. So I had to make that difficult decision. So while I took the leap of faith, I actually had a soft landing because I worked part-time at Chicago State University.
Okay.
And during that time, I would have a lot of university students come in asking me a lot of questions about hair because they knew about my background. And so as a result, I started giving talks. And I would have a long line of people at the end of my talk asking me specific questions. And the number one question was, what should I do with my hair? And what product should I use? And so it was not based on the information that I've got from all the years that I've been in the industry, it's not a very simple answer. And my answer would be, well, it depends. It depends on a whole lot of different variables because everybody doesn't use the same products. Everyone doesn't cleanse their hair with the same frequency. Everyone does not have the same regimen in terms of, what types of shampoos or conditioners they use. So all of these variables play a role. And so I would have to get in-depth information. So Main Insights is a scientific approach to hair care based on what I know and all the variables that can dictate what's going on with the hair or how your hair responds. And so it was a way for me to continue to do research, but at the same time help people with their hair.
Oh my gosh. I actually have kind of a similar question to oh my God, I cannot speak sometimes. I have a similar question to the questions people often ask you, and I know maybe a little bit cliche. I always wonder, how do I do my hair? How do I do it correctly? And I know, of course, considering that it varies for everybody, what are just some tips that you have overall for Black hair, which you think is something that all Black girls should know? What is something that you think overall that, this should be a factor that you should consider?
Right. So one of the things people need, or women in particular, Black women need to keep in mind is there are a variety of ways that we do our hair, right? So some people like our hair just to stay still. So, it's kind of those free styles, right? So the products that you use for that isn't the same as if you want your hair to move or if you wear your hair straight. So depending upon what you do with your hair will dictate what products and how you should manipulate your hair, right? And so let's talk about the standard hair. So I'll just say natural hair and naturally curly hair. And so oftentimes there is a technique, to protect your hair. So sometimes you can put it in cornrows, or sometimes you can put it in a weave or hair extensions. And a lot of times the hair extensions are just too tight. Yeah. And it's not healthy to do that at all long term. Now, what happens is when you pull too tightly on the hair, you traumatize the follicle, and the follicle is the orifice that actually allows the hair to grow. And so when you pull too tightly, then you traumatize it, it will no longer grow the hair if you keep traumatizing it with the tension or the pulling. So one of the things that I oftentimes say, you should not pull your hair to the point where it's going to, lead to pain. Or sometimes when you pull it, there are these little bumps that you will get. And so you don't want it so tight that you see that or you experience pain. So that's one of the things that I would say definitely be mindful of. The other thing is when your hair is wet, it's in its most fragile state. So even though curly hair is easier to manipulate while it's wet, no matter what type of hair, it's going to be more fragile. So earlier I spoke about the hair cuticle. Yeah. And the hair cuticle is that protective layer. Well, the hair cuticle is actually held together with kind of a matrix, right? So you have the matrix, and when it's wet, it swells, and then it becomes a little bit more compromised. So you want to be very careful, which is why conditioning is extremely important. But I don't know anyone who has curlier hair type who would not put a conditioner in the hair. But the conditioner really helps to lubricate and help you manage it. So decreasing the forces that it takes to manipulate the hair is really key. And making sure that if the hair is wet, that you have a conditioner on is really important.
Okay.
Let me see, is there anything else that I can think of off the bat? I spoke about weaves and extensions earlier. And even though, excuse me, I think it's less of a practice now,
Yeah.
but I would say 10 plus years ago, people were putting glue or holding the extensions or weave onto their scalp with glue. And I would say, please, please avoid using glue. That is not meant for our hair or scalp.
Okay. I had no idea that that was even used for like weave or extensions. I knew that it's used for like wigs, but I didn't know that that was a practice.
Yeah, it is.
That sounds scary. That sounds really damaging too. Oh.
Yeah, that's not good. And speaking of glue, there is a TikTok video that just came out this past week. You know what I'm talking about?
Gorilla glue.
Yeah. And when I saw it, so I know people who saw it and was like, oh my God, who would do that? But there is a hair product called Gorilla, not Gorilla Slime. It's called Snot, I think is what it's called. Gorilla Snot. And it's a hair care product. So she may have legitimately thought she was getting the hair product and ended up getting the Gorilla Glue, and she's having difficulties. But I did hear today she did go to the emergency room, which I was relieved, because when I saw it, my heart just went out to her. And I was like, oh my gosh, she could really be affected long-term as a result of that. So.
Because that's damaging. And also when she was showing her trying to wash it out and it just wasn't coming out, like I got really scared. And my mom had said the same thing about the product, because I had no idea that there was a product with a similar name. So she could have just accidentally gotten the wrong one and didn't know. I hope that everything's going to be okay for her, because that is really, really
scary. Yeah, scary. I can't wait to hear the update, but I hope that it's a positive outcome. I hope that the company worked together with the physicians and they were able to really help her out with that particular problem.
Yeah, I feel the same way as well. And one thing that I actually know that is on the advertisement that I have for today, if you were not able to see, but you have a movement called Our Black Hair Matters.
Yes,
and I absolutely love it. But I want you to be able to tell the people, what is hashtag Our Black Hair Matters?
Yes, Our Black Hair Matters is a platform so that Black people can become aware of the issues that we have with Black hair, but also is a way for us to support women with Black hair issues. It ranges anywhere from the emotional, because unfortunately, our hair is an accessory, right? So sometimes we have those those bad hair days because we don't feel our best, and it's unfortunate because it takes an emotional toll. So while people are like, oh, it's just aesthetics, it's really more of an extension of ourselves. So I wanted to have a platform where I could just have open dialogue, but also allow people to get trusted information about Black hair, because there are so many platforms out there that talk about hair, and it's a lot of misinformation going around. So I've been very fortunate to be in a space where I believe that I have knowledge that would be valuable for people, but I also know other people in the industry where I would be able to bring them on the platform, interview them, get their perspective, and let others know that there are options. And I'm not the only hair scientist out there. There are hair care scientists, which are scientists who actually make the products and also study the effects. And I oftentimes work hand in hand with the formulator. So people hear that I'm a hair scientist and they automatically think, oh, you make the product. when in actuality, I'm a little bit further up in the chain. I gather the information so that the formulators can make the products better and for the specific needs of the people that they're making it for. So our Black Hair Matters is just to elevate the industry. It is essential because a lot of people don't realize that when you look at a label and you look at the claims that are made, a lot of times the claims are not for Black hair, even though Black people are buying the product. The testing on hair is oftentimes done on Caucasian hair. And then they do all the testing on that, and then they extrapolate and believe that it's for our hair. But one thing that being at the Institute and doing research has taught me is that all hair is not created equal. So you can't say what is going to work for one particular hair type is going to work for the other. And I mentioned that Black hair has a lot of variability. So I talked about how on one head that it's more diverse in terms of the fiber characteristics. But even if you look at one strand of Black hair, so I've been playing around with this. It's something that you probably don't know what it is, but your mom and people who are my age know exactly what this is. It's a telephone cord, an old telephone cord.
Oh my.
Right. And so I have this because if this was a hair fiber, a curly hair fiber, along the length of this hair fiber, you have a lot of variability. So this example is like very uniform. So you have this coil and it's pretty repetitive. But in a real hair fiber, especially the curlier the hair fiber, you actually have a lot of bends and kinks in here. So the degree of bends and kinks change more along the length of Black hair compared to even curlier Caucasian hair or Asian hair. Okay. So because of that variability, there are certain points here that will make it more susceptible to break. So just knowing these differences, you can't just extrapolate and think that a product that is going to work on Caucasian hair is going to address some of the variability or changes that we have with Black hair. So it is raising awareness, because I believe once people understand that if there is no data to show that it is indeed effective on Black hair, then we as consumers need to demand and ask the questions from the manufacturers who are making a product. Show me the data that it actually works. So I do have a hashtag, show me the data, because that's really what is at the heart of understanding and making sure that our needs are met. But we have to demand it. And if we know about it, then we can demand it, which is why when people ask about having natural ingredients, we drove, as consumers, we drove that movement for companies to start making sure that their products had natural ingredients, because that's what we demanded, right? So it's the same thing, having the information and making demands to make sure that our needs are met.
Okay. See, that is so inspirational. And for me, as a Black girl, sometimes I used to be really insecure about my hair because my hair wasn't the same exact way as everybody else's. Like, oh, when they could just pull it up into a messy bun, all of a sudden I could not do that. It would either hurt really bad or I would mess up the way that my hair already was. And it was just a whole mess. And now that I've gotten older, I've learned to embrace it a lot. And I now have found products that work for my hair type. And it can be a bit of a struggle sometimes, especially considering I can't even French braid good. So it's a tiny bit of a struggle, but I'm really glad that a hashtag like our Black Hair Matters exists, so people will be able to not only get the right information, but at the same time we'll find a different collective of people that are there that either can go through the same hair struggles as them, but also at the same time grow together as people with their hair. Because I feel, this is my mentality, sometimes the hair can make the outfit. Like for me, if I have on a really cute outfit and I think that I look really good, if my hair doesn't look good, I'm like, oh, this does not look that good. I need to fix my hair. So it really is also a self-esteem thing, and it's way more than just a hairstyle, which is why I'm glad that something like our Black Hair Matters exists. And thank you for creating something like that for everybody.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? It wasn't necessarily my idea, because the Crown Act, have you heard of the Crown Act? Yeah, so there has been a lot of discrimination just targeted at Black people because of how they wear or how we wear our hair. And just having the Crown Act to make it, that type of discrimination illegal is really important. But it just boggles my mind because you just wouldn't think that that type of discrimination would be tolerated. So in the workplace, if we're not allowed to express ourselves through our hair, I don't, it's what grows naturally from our head. So even the Crown Act is, some aspect of our Black hair mattering, right? So.
And that's something that I love is happening because I just find it so horrible that it's literally hair. And it makes me sad because, like, always, some is considered distracting and some is not when it's really something that I can't change. So that's something I'm like, oh, okay. But good news is we have movements to help us move forward as a people. And one thing I really want to be able to talk about is sometimes you have lunchtime chat live streams. And that's something that I wanted to mention. So, first, will you tell everybody what that is, what are included in some of your live streams, and of course, where people can watch them?
Yeah. So the lunchtime chat is just an opportunity for us to get that information out, me interviewing different people in the industry. I have a team of trichologists and hair practitioners who are helping me with research because also a part of the movement is to not only demand to see the data, but to also generate the data and to conduct research. So it's a platform just to let people know exactly what's going on, to answer questions, but to also highlight people in the industry who is about the movement of our Black Hair Matters. And so I stream on YouTube, I stream on Facebook, so you can go to Our Black Hair Matters. I have a free gift for anyone who goes to ourblackhairmatters.com. You can sign up to get information about your hair and, like little known secrets that I have learned along the way. But also I have a group on Facebook, Our Black Hair Matters Movement. And that is a space where you can ask questions. And my goal is to have a big enough population where we can not only have open dialogue, but trusted dialogue, but have a lot of the professionals actually give the help that a lot of the consumers need. Because especially in this time of COVID, there are a lot of questions and problems that Black women in particular have when it comes to trying to maintain their hair. So if there's a platform where they can get trusted information, or at least, so you have the aesthetic side of it, and then you have the scientific side of it. And so at least the aesthetic side of it, meaning, things that you can smell and, look at and try to enhance your hair in those ways, you can get those questions answered.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
I really, really enjoy. I actually watched one of your previous lunchtime chats and I was blown away because I learned things that I never even expected to learn. So everybody watching this today, please make sure to go over and follow and like and do all of that because this movement and everything that you are doing is so inspiring and so uplifting to Black people everywhere and of course to our Black crowns that are growing from our heads because
yes, ma'am.
That is something that I always had to think about. My mom always told me when I used to get insecure about my hair and be like, oh my gosh, I wish I had really straight hair because I hate that my hair is so curly. She always let me know that you have a crown growing out of your head, so embrace it. And that's the way that I learned how to embrace it. So thank you for everything that you are doing. It is just so inspiring to me and to everybody out here watching. So thank you for that.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. This is awesome.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to do before you go is lots of the time the audience can have questions of their own on YouTube and Facebook. And considering that the show is live stream, I will answer a couple of your questions, and so can Miss Crystal Porter. So let me get my phone right here, and I'm gonna go. I always go over to YouTube first.
It's okay.
I'm gonna go either over to YouTube or Facebook first. So I will pick. So give me a couple of seconds so I can look over here. Wait, I'm on YouTube first, guys, by the way. So let me just go over here. Okay, one person. Okay, first off, I'm just gonna say my cousin Paige asked me, "Have I never seen a phone cord?" I have seen a phone cord. I just had no clue that was a phone cord right there that she showed. So no, I may be young, but I'm not that young. I
Yes,
guess
my phone cord.
yeah. I'm like, I've seen a phone cord before. Don't worry. One person asked, "What is a trichologist?"
Ah, excellent. So a trichologist, yeah, I think I did mention that. A trichologist is a professional, usually a licensed hair stylist, but they have more education about diseases of the hair and scalp. So oftentimes when people are experiencing hair loss or other hair issues, such as, dandruff, they feel that they can go be seen by someone who's also aware of how they can present themselves aesthetically. But I oftentimes tell people that trichology is best paired with a dermatologist, because dermatology is also, dermatologist is a physician who has a specialty in hair, skin, and nails. And so hair is an extension, or the hair specialty is an extension of some of the scalp problems that people experience. And so it's important for someone with scalp issues to see both a dermatologist and a trusted trichologist.
Oh, okay. I had no idea that there were specific names for these people. And I had no idea that a trichologist even existed. So I find that very interesting. And when it comes to the different jobs that have to do with hair, what are some that you think of at the top of your head? And what's like an estimate number of different jobs that go into hair? Like what is an estimate number that you think that there are? I know I find that kind of interesting.
So jobs related to hair?
Like jobs related to hair and like scientists that like study different parts of hair.
Ooh. The main ones are like scientists like me who are in the industry, who conduct research. So hair scientists or hair care scientists, I'll kind of put us in the same bucket. Of course, you have cosmetologists and barbers who have training. They have licenses that give them the credentials to be able to manipulate someone's hair, whether it be cutting or styling. And then you have teachers, or instructors who teach cosmetologists and barbers about hair. And let me see, dermatologists, like I said, they are physicians of hair, skin, and nails. Those are the main ones that I can think of at this point. But a lot of the research and science or scientists, they go hand in hand, or they work with or collaborate with other people who have like expertise in statistics, expertise in the math, the modeling, for example. I was talking about my, model of my curly hair fiber, but in actuality, because so if you see this, it reminds you of a spring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the spring of hair can be measured in physics. So we can collaborate with someone who is good at physics to understand the energy that you have to overcome to extend it if you want to wear your hair straight. So it's all kind of, different disciplines that you can put together to ultimately understand what's going on with the different hair types.
Okay. I just realized just from this chat with you tonight that there are so many different parts that go into it that I just feel are things that some of us, we don't even learn about. Like I had no idea that a dermatologist even like went into hair that much. But I was like, oh, that's a really big part of it. So that's something that I'm going to have to consider, and I'm going to have to research even more because I'm really interested. All right, let me look at a couple more questions that you guys may have. Ooh, what is the most surprising thing that you have ever learned about hair?
The most surprising thing, let's see, what was surprising to me? I guess the most frustrating, well, it was surprising and frustrating. Black hair is the hardest, or the most difficult or challenging hair to study. Actually, on our Black Hair Matters, or my lunchtime chat that I'm going to have this upcoming Monday, I will be discussing the science of hair and trying to study and do research and the challenges that you have, even getting information, right?
Yeah.
And so the surprising and challenging part is that it's hard to get reproducibility with Black hair. So you have these findings and you get hair samples and you go through the gamut of different experiments and you get these findings and you're like, yay, I understand something. And then you get another head of hair and you go through the exact same process and results are different. And it's like, good grief. And they're not just different by a little, they're different by a lot. And so that is why Main Insights gives a personalized approach to hair care, because all hair is not created equal. It doesn't respond the same, but it's dependent upon the hair history. And so because you may use a different shampoo, or you may have oils that you put in your hair every other day, the type of oil, the type of conditioner, the way you manipulate the hair, whether or not you have it braided sometimes or not, that will affect the quality. So when you're testing hair that has a different baseline of quality, then you're not going to get the same results. So I would say that was the most surprising, to really understand the impact and how important it is to consider that baseline behavior of the hair and how it's going to respond to different products and ways that you manipulate it.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like so much work.
It is a lot of work, but it's fun. I appreciate the challenge. It's still a story that you can tell, and it's even more fun when you can tell that story to someone specifically about their hair so that they can understand what's going on with them.
Okay, because I am like, I don't know if my skill set will ever have the ability to do something like that. I'm just like, it's so many different things put into it. And also when just thinking about Black hair, there's so many different textures and everything that the results are privy to. Okay, let me find the perfect way to say this. The results are likely to come out very, very, very different, because there's a large variety of textures when it comes to different Black people. I'm like, okay. Okay, I'm only going to ask a couple more questions because we're starting to run out of time and I don't want to run out of time.
You're fine.
Okay, here's one. How many years did you have to study before getting your first job in hair?
Okay, let me just say how many years are typical, because I took the long route. I took the scenic route. I did, I kind of deviated and didn't go in a straight line. So usually nowadays, a lot of people can get their degree in 2.5 to 3 years as an undergraduate, which I think is fantastic, because they take dual credit. And so you get college credit. And so you can shorten the amount of time that it takes to finish your bachelor's. So I would say, okay, most people, if you don't do dual credit, you can do 4 to 5 years in your undergraduate studies. If you're like studying engineering, some engineering programs are 5 years and not 4. So I'll just say 4 to 5 as an undergraduate. Then you can add on 4 to 5 years if you pursue a PhD.
Okay.
So I would say anywhere from 8 to 10 years after high school is how long it would take for you to do something like what I did. But I took the scenic route. I didn't know what I was doing. Like I said, I started off as an accounting major, which was a big mistake. And then, became nursing major, then finally biochemistry, but that's not the norm.
You like went from straight line, maybe did a U-turn.
Oh yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It took a little while, but you got there. And
I got there.
And I find it really interesting how with the times changing, like you can get there faster. And I'm like, okay. Okay, because things are starting to speed up a little bit. All right, that sounds really cool. And
You know what? It's almost a catch-22 because now I tell my daughter this. She has more to learn than I did because the information that is being shared or what we're finding through research and just the information that you need to know is so vast now compared to when it was when I was in school. And one of the things that you always have to do, and I think it's with every discipline, you have to continue to learn because things are changing. And so just to keep up with what's going on in your field, you have to continuously learn.
okay, that's something that I realize because the more times change, the more life goes on, the more information that is known, the more
Yep.
information that is
Yeah.
found. So, that makes it the more information to learn. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Like that's me processing it. I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna ask one last question. Oh, this is perfect. The perfect way to end off. Where can we find you? The perfect way to end off. Where can they
Awesome.
find you?
So you put up my website, so maininsights.com, but I also, you can reach me at hairdoc@maininsights.com. That's my email address, HAIRDOC, like hair doctor, but hair doc at
Mhm.
maininsights.com. And my business phone number is area code 312-772-2219.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. And one thing that I want to add, where can people follow our Black Hair Matters and where can people watch your lunchtime chats?
Yes. So I stream on pretty much like you on YouTube. So you can subscribe so you can get the alerts. So YouTube at Our Black Hair Matters. And then also I have a Facebook page. I also have a Instagram account
Okay.
and I am also on Twitter. So
Alrighty.
Our Black Hair Matters and Main Insights, both of them. Main Insights is my research arm, and so I collaborate with serious and professionals or hair practitioners who want to make a difference. So that's Main Insights and the research aspect. And then the information or knowledge sharing and support system for Black people who care about hair is the Our Black Hair Matters.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so,
Thank
so
you.
much for being on tonight's episode of Teendom with me. I can speak for everyone when we say we have learned so much information from you tonight about our hair, and it's just something that we never thought that we would learn. So thank you for everything that you were doing. Of course,
Thank you.
for you being a hair scientist with Main Insights, with our Black Hair Matters, with your lunchtime chats, and more. And I wish you the best. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Same here. Smooches.
Hugs and love.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope to see you soon.
Okay, same here.
Okay,
Stay safe.
you too. Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh. I have learned so much. My head, my brain is on hair overload right now, and it is in a very good way. I have learned things about my hair that I never thought that I would be able to learn, all thanks to Dr. Crystal Porter. And remember, I will screen share her website one last time so you guys will be able to make sure to check it out. It's maininsights.com. You also can go to Our Black Hair Matters. You can be able to follow her on YouTube and Facebook so you can watch the lunchtime chats and make sure to just follow Our Black Hair Matters on all social media platforms. And before we go, I want to mention one last thing. I talked about it a little bit last week, but it is the Teendom Talk Show Book Club. So this month, which is February, the month of February, we will be reading The Black Kids. It is written by Christina Hamden Reed. And this is the book right here. I ordered it and I just started reading it and I'm so excited for it. So it is The Black Kids, and you can feel free on social medias be able to share it using the hashtag Teendom Talk Show Book Club just to be able to read along with me. This fantastic book has great reviews and I cannot wait to finish reading it. And at the end of the month, we can have a little bit of a chat just about what the book was about so you guys will be able to continue reading during this detrimental time. I know that things seem as if it is going crazy, right now, but look at the positive, bright side. Everything is great. For me, it is snowing a little bit here in Chicago, which is a little bit of a yay and nay, but at the same time, things are going great. And being able to read not only calms you down, but you also learn some things that you never really thought of before, and also helps you look at life from a different perspective. And reading, considering that I'm in school, is something that I should get back into, which hopefully you guys can get back into too. So remember to use the hashtag Teendom Talk Show Book Club on all social medias so I can see that you guys are reading along with me. And with that, make sure to follow Teendom Talk Show on YouTube, Inspired Melanin on Facebook, so you will never miss a single Teendom Talk Show episode. And also make sure to follow my personal Instagram, AveryK_official, so you can get all Teendom alerts, and also so you may be able to get a little bit of a sneak peek for next week's episode. Make sure to come back next week, same time, same place, for another Black History Month special, and I will see you guys later.